Aubrey and I do want to welcome you to our first of two virtual Hangouts for National Nutrition Month. And we are with our friends at MANNA. So it'll be a wonderful virtual Hangout full of food, talking nutrition and health, but also sharing the good work that they provide in our surrounding area as well. Before we jump into that, I also want to kick off by sharing our sponsors. So for those of you that join our educational segments each month, you know how grateful we are for the sponsors that support our educational initiative with all of the segments that we bring you. So I want to give a big thanks to our presenting sponsors this evening, West, Merck, and Daiichi Sankyo, as well as additional support from GSK and Lilly. So again, we could not continue to bring these educational speakers and events and learning opportunities without their support. So a little bit of housekeeping, as Aubrey said, we do ask that you put yourself on mute, but please feel free to raise your hand if you have questions. The folks at MANNA will be working through several recipes, and for those that hopped on our virtual cooking classes, ask all of the food questions that you'd like for substitutions and recipes and how to. They are also experts in this field. So please feel free to pick their brain. You can put it in the chat, you can raise your hand, but we'll be monitoring that as we move through class. As you can tell, this event is recorded. So if you have to hop off early, or if you want to come back and rewatch so you can get a feel for those recipes that you'll be making on your own, it will be recorded, and this will be in our Her library probably as soon as tomorrow morning. And then I just want to set a few quick reminders because, like we said, it's National Nutrition Month, which means that we've got a lot of fun stuff going on for the month of March. So for our second virtual Hangout, which will be taking place next Wednesday, March 13th, same time, 5 p.m. Eastern time, you will be joined once again by our entire culinary team for another Cooking Methods 101. So we had probably too good of a time, Aubrey, I would say, the last time we were cooking. So the four of us will be hopping on and we'll be demoing how to cook different greens and different methods of cooking. So please feel free to join us next Wednesday. We also have our speaker series, which is taking place on March 21st at 6 p.m. We'll be joined by the president of the Society for Integrative Oncology, and he will be talking all about integrative oncology and personalized cancer care. So they are so much in line with the mission and vision of Unite for Her. So it'll be great to dive into that aspect of oncology care with another physician. And then you'll be joining our nutrition team again at the end of the month for what we are calling our Ask the Experts Nutrition Rapid Fire. So our team of dietitians will be moving through and answering as many nutrition questions as we can. That is streamed live on Facebook, and we welcome you to submit your nutrition questions ahead of time as well. So if there's anything pressing that you would like us to answer, as with all of our Ask the Experts, you can submit your questions before we begin. So we'll post all of those links for registration and for submitting your questions in the chat. But a lot of fun stuff going on in March, so definitely watch our social media and our newsletters that go out so that you can stay tuned for all of our great stuff happening. Busy time this March.
Yes, it is a month full of our dietitian team and connections with other dietitians and chefs. And so with that, I'm really excited to dive into our topic today. So first, I wanted to highlight a little bit about MANNA. So MANNA believes in the power of food as medicine. They're a leader in evidence-based nutrition services, bringing together dietitians, chefs, drivers, and thousands of volunteers to cook and deliver nutritious, medically appropriate meals and provide nutrition counseling to neighbors who are battling serious illnesses such as cancer, renal diseases, and HIV/AIDS. From hands-on cooking classes, like today, and nutrition counseling to the delivery of 3 meals a day, 7 days a week, MANNA provides nourishment, hope, and healing to the greater Philadelphia area, southern New Jersey, and beyond. In honor of National Nutrition Month tonight, we're joined by one of their dietitians and chefs, who will be whipping up a few of their favorite healthy and delicious meals. So I wanted to introduce our two that we have today. We have Brianna Wilson, who is a registered dietitian. She completed her Master of Public Health and Nutrition from Temple University and Bachelor of Science in Biology from Clemson University. Prior to coming on full-time as an RD, Brianna interned at MANNA and studied how food insecurity can impact eating behaviors. We also have Dustin Bauman, who's a professional chef with 15 years of extensive culinary, kitchen management, and menu planning experience. He's a recognized for innovative recipes and cost-effective kitchen management, and he's currently the assistant food service manager at MANNA and has been with the company since 2020. So please join me in welcoming Brianna and Dustin. All right,
Hi,
take it away,
everyone.
guys.
Hi, I'm Brianna. I'm the dietitian here at MANNA, and we're going to walk you through three different recipes today. So Dustin's here to help me. We're going to be doing an air fried salmon, a corn and zucchini skillet, and then a broccoli quinoa salad.
All right, let's get started. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We're excited for this event, and we're going to get kicked off with the air fryer salmon with the honey mustard glaze. So we got, first thing first, we have our air fryer getting preheated here. So you just want to take a couple of minutes, make sure that gets hot before we get the salmon ready to go in. All right, all set there. I'm going to now make the marinade for the salmon. One of the most important things when you're cooking a recipe or when you're getting ready to cook something is you want to have your mise en place ready. So mise en place is a French term that we use in the culinary world. It just means getting your ingredients in place, having everything ready in front of you so that you're ready to go. So if you can see it here, I'm not really sure, but we have all our ingredients kind of laid out in front of us here. They're all measured out, all ready to go. So I'm going to get started making the marinade. So we have our seasoning mix here, a little salt, little pepper, a little paprika, a little garlic powder. We have our honey. And we have some Dijon mustard here. And if you're doing a similar recipe, you know, if you don't have Dijon mustard, you could use any kind of mustard, whole grain, yellow mustard. Any type of mustard works for a salmon dish and goes great taste-wise.
We also picked some of these recipes too because you can see how you can use the Dijon mustard in a variety of ways. So we're going to be making later on when we get to the quinoa salad a dressing that's a Dijon-based marinade too, or Dijon-based vinaigrette. So you can see how a lot of these ingredients will overlap, so you can make it a little more budget-friendly too.
All right, so we got our marinade mixed up. As you guys can see here, it's nice and whisked together. So there's a couple different ways we can marinate it. With the size of this salmon, I think the easiest way to do it is to kind of take a plastic bag like this, and we'll just insert the salmon in here, and we'll kind of pour the marinade on top. So the recipe does recommend to marinate this for 30 minutes beforehand. For time purposes, we are not going to do that today, but I do recommend it. It's very important. It lets all those flavors come together and, you know, really incorporate inside the fish.
One of the ways you could do this at home is you could marinate your salmon and then go ahead and start working on either prepping the chopping for the salad or go ahead and start cooking the zucchini and corn. These each will take about 10 minutes. So 10 minutes for this, 10 minutes for the chopping, and then your salmon's done marinating. And that takes about 7 to 8 minutes in the air fryer too.
All right, so our air fryer's ready, our salmon's ready. I did preserve some of the marinade here so we could kind of put some glaze on top of it at the end. We're gonna go ahead and pop the air fryer open.
And just a quick question, Dustin, could we use any kind of fish? If somebody didn't like salmon, for example, could they use a different fish in this recipe?
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna go based on your flavor profile, really. You could use any sort of whitefish, some bronzino, maybe some cod, you know, halibut. These marinades go well with most fishes on a flavor standpoint. You could use anything from tuna, so it's basically based on your preference of what you want to do. You could always switch up the ingredients a little bit, just based on flavor from a flavor standpoint. So yeah, basically any kind of fish you want. So we're all set up, 408 minutes, and we are ready to cook.
Can you pause it? One of the reasons that we picked salmon for this recipe specifically is because salmon is one of the fishes that's going to be really high in omega-3 fatty acids. Some of the benefits from that is they can help lower your triglycerides, which can help with cholesterol levels. They have a lot of heart protecting benefits. There's a wide variety of fishes that also will incorporate this. So salmon would be the second highest fish with omega-3 fatty acids. Mackerel is actually the first highest. We just chose salmon for this recipe too. You also can get that from plant-based sources as well if you're a vegan or vegetarian, you don't eat fish. So foods like walnuts would be a good example of that, edamame. A lot of different nuts have good omega-3 fatty acids as well. So you can get it from a variety of different foods if you're not a fish eater.
All right, so I think while our salmon's cooking now, we're gonna move on. I'm gonna show you guys a couple of knife skills and some cutting techniques. We're gonna move on to our zucchini and corn saute. So I'll show you guys a quick demonstration, just some knife skills and the proper way to cut, and so that way we don't cut ourselves, and safety first. Excuse me 1 second.
So this is a great dish to make coming up on the warmer months too, when zucchini and corn will be in season. For this recipe, it has a variety. You could use either fresh corn, you could just cut it off the cob. You could use canned corn, frozen corn. We use frozen corn today, but you could really pick from any source. One of the things with the canned corn or frozen corn too, you want to make sure that you're looking out for the sodium in the canned options too. They can be a little higher sometimes. So opting for a low sodium or no salt added would be beneficial for this recipe specifically. If you don't have that on hand and you have canned corn with a higher amount of sodium, you can give it a quick rinse and that can reduce some of the sodium content of the corn specifically.
All right, so we're gonna start with our zucchini here. I'm just gonna chop a little bit of the ends off because we don't want to waste too much. We want to, get the most yield out of it as we can. And for this recipe specifically, we could do a couple different knife cuts here. But for this one, I'm going to show you what it calls for on the recipe. So we're just going to start by cutting the zucchini in half because the smaller pieces are just a little bit easier to work with. I'm going to take that down lengthwise and I'm just going to cut it like this. And then we are going to make one more cut so we kind of get that quarter cut there. And I'm going to go about 1/4 inch thick. And I'm just going to use the rocking motion of the knife. And one of the mistakes that I think some cooks at home kind of use is they see a big knife like this and they want to, use the whole knife. But for this particular recipe or for this ingredient, the zucchini is only about 1 inch thick. So I'm only going to use the bottom inch of the knife here. So I'm just going to take it and kind of rock that with that. And yeah. I'll finish cutting this up. There are a couple different ways you can cut this. You could, do a half moon shape. You could keep it whole and just slice it down in circles. It's basically based on preference. This cut particular uses a very nice texture for the zucchini, so you get that kind of crunch out of it. That's it. All right,
Could
so
you
we're gonna
use
get
maybe a
started
yellow
on.
squash if you didn't have a zucchini?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Squash is definitely a very versatile ingredient flavor wise. So if you don't have zucchini, you could definitely use just a regular yellow squash. If it's something in the fall time or something like that, you might want to try a different squash, such as acorn or butternut squash. Those are going to use a little bit different cooking techniques. So for this particular recipe, we are just going to use the zucchini and the yellow squash would be best.
I think this recipe also would work really well if you had like asparagus as well or Brussels sprouts too. You could do either if you wanted to switch it up, you can kind of whatever vegetables you prefer. They all go pretty well.
Great options for flavor wise.
Great ideas. Thank you.
Right. All right, so as I was chopping here, one thing that's important for when we saute, I had my pan getting nice and hot. You never want to saute in a cold saute pan. You want to make sure it's at least getting warm. You kind of, let your hand above it and feel that heat coming off. So I'm gonna work with like a medium heat here. I'm gonna add my olive oil now that the pan is nice and hot.
A little garlic.
Little garlic. Yep, I'm gonna let that sit for 1 second. All right, you can add the garlic for me. So we can use various tools too, when you're moving the garlic around. One thing that tends to happen is it cooks very fast, and also it tends to stick to the pan a little bit. So we're gonna try and not let that happen. We're gonna add our zucchini real quick. All right. So we kind of want to keep the pan moving. A rubber spatula works great for cooking this. We also have tongs. Tongs are the chef's best friend. So if you have tongs at home, rubber spatula, anything like that, it's really going to help you kind of get through this sauteing process. We're going to move that around a little bit.
And this should cook for about 5 minutes or so. It's a pretty quick side dish to make.
Yeah, it's very simple, very fresh, very delicious. So it's a really great recipe for most seasons, especially in the spring and the summertime.
And it's pretty versatile too with the seasonings that you put on top of it too. I make this at home a lot. I switch up pretty much everything I make it with what seasonings I use, whatever I have in the pantry too. Salt and pepper, kind of the base. And then I'll add Italian seasoning, or I'll add, I like a lot of the Trader Joe's seasonings too. I'll mix it with that too sometimes. So really whatever you're pairing it with, just kind of matching it to that as well. It's a really versatile side dish to have.
Yeah, the zucchini and the corn kind of take on any flavor or any seasoning that you add. So if it's a preference of flavor, you could kind of do it to your taste. So we're gonna allow this to saute for about 2 more minutes or so. We definitely want it. It's kind of like to the tooth, if you guys ever heard the term when you're eating fresh pasta. You want to feel that bite when you get into the zucchini. So, you don't want it to be overly cooked where it's soggy and it's kind of just melting in your mouth. You want that texture to really, pop in your mouth when you eat it.
I have a question for you. So the meals that you're making tonight, are they also similar to the types of meals that you provide to the people that you serve in our community?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I'm having a little hard time hearing you over this.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was asking if the meals that you're making tonight, we know that you provide meals to our local community. So are these similar to what you might provide to your members?
Are they similar to what we provide to our clients?
These dishes here. So we do
Yes.
use things as zucchini, corn. We don't do it this particular dish. We mainly work in bigger batches, batch cooking. We're cooking for roughly 900 clients, something like that. So saute isn't going to be the method that we use, but we do use ingredients like fresh zucchini, corn. We have a black bean and corn salad that's on our menu. So this is definitely something that we incorporate into a nutrition based menu.
With our meals too, they're all, because they're medically tailored meals, they're all pre-portioned so that they're about 50% carbohydrates, about 30% protein, and about 20% fat. So that's kind of what you get on the average dinner meal that you would get. So fairly similar to what we're making here today on that standpoint.
All right, so this looks like it's about ready. It was about 5 minutes. I heard our salmon going off in the background, so that's finishing up as well. So I'm gonna add the rest of our seasoning here. Just kind of sprinkle that on top, mix it around. One important thing before we add the lemon juice is you don't want to add that in the beginning because the acid could really turn into a bitter flavor. So you want to make sure you add this towards the end, right before you're gonna shut the pan off. That's kind of ready. I'm just gonna incorporate that. I'm gonna turn my heat off here, and we'll put this to the side until we're ready to plate at the end.
And our seasonings that we used for this were thyme, oregano, and basil.
Thyme, oregano, basil.
Basil, yeah.
Yep.
So a quarter teaspoon of each, and then a little bit of salt and pepper as well. All right, so now we're gonna move on to the last portion, which is our broccoli quinoa salad. So we're gonna do some more knife skills with this as well, because cutting a crown of broccoli is not always the easiest task.
Yeah, I think the easiest way to do the broccoli is to kind of tip it upside down so it's like this on your cutting board. That way you could kind of, see the broccoli a little bit clearer, whereas if you hold it like this, you can't really see where you're cutting. So if we tip it upside down and then I just kind of go around the edge, cut off here, and then we'll just do this for every floret of broccoli. Also, some of these pieces are kind of big. We want to keep them the same size for cooking consistency. We don't want one big piece and one small piece because, the small piece is going to cook within 5 to 10 seconds or whatever. And then the big piece is going to, be much longer than that. So I kind of want to break these down into uniform slices. This. There are a couple of different things you could do with this. If you could get broccoli in the store that's already chopped, you can use a mandolin to kind of shave it down if you have that sort of tools inside your kitchen. So there's a couple of different ways that you could kind of cut it or prepare it or even get it in the store, so that maybe you don't feel like cooking, maybe you don't have the time to cut the broccoli fresh. But so it's a couple options out there.
Yeah, the shaved broccoli kits are really helpful for these types of things, especially if you're someone who likes to meal prep on the go quickly. You just don't want to spend the time chopping up 3 heads of broccoli. The shaved broccoli kits a lot of the times also will have things like cauliflower and corn, carrots in them. So just another way to add in a few more flavors, a few more nutrients too, just to kind of pack in all that nutrients into this quick little salad too. And these will stay fresh in the refrigerator for a few days too. So it makes a good quantity. You can make it and have it for the next couple of days, put it into different Tupperwares too, and just kind of mix and match your protein that you'd like. You also can do this as a meatless option too, because quinoa is a good source of plant-based protein. It's a good source of plant-based protein as well as fiber. And yeah, so it's a pretty well-balanced side dish here. Also, you can make some substitutions as well. So this one has slivered almonds. The recipe calls to toast it. We are just skipping that for time preferences.
Yeah, there's a couple of ways you can toast almonds. The fastest, quickest way is going to be inside a saute pan. The one thing you want to know about that is, just keep the heat low, keep the pan moving, because it's a direct heat cooking. So, it's going to burn if you have the heat all the way up, if you're not moving the pan enough. But usually roughly around 5 minutes, just saute, keeping it moving. Or you could easily just put it inside the oven, 325 degrees, let it bake for about 10 minutes. And halfway through about the 5-minute mark, you just want to move those almonds around a little bit to try and get them all the same toasted on there.
So we're gonna go ahead and start just mixing all the main ingredients. So we're adding our broccoli first. Same thing with the quinoa. You can buy several different varieties of quinoa. So ours is pre-cooked. You can buy microwavable quinoa that you just pop in the microwave and it's ready in just a minute. The traditional way would just be taking a cup of quinoa to 2 cups of water and cooking it on a stovetop for about 15 minutes or until it's, what's the term for when quinoa's done?
When it's like bloomed and it kind of bursts. Yeah.
So we have pre-cooked, but that's just another way that you could cut out some of the time for making this dish too.
It's very similar to cooking rice, as she said. It's 2 parts water to 1 part quinoa. And you want to just, bring it to a boil and then bring it down to a low simmer for about 20 minutes or so, I would say.
Also, if you have a nut allergy or friends or family have nut allergies and you want to avoid using almonds, a good alternative would be sunflower seeds too. So that's another way that you could alter this recipe.
Could you use perhaps a different grain too? Like if you don't have quinoa and you have something else on hand, or like you don't love the taste of quinoa?
Yeah, you can do farro's, like a great substitute for that. Couscous probably isn't going to have the same nutritional value, but that's something that's kind of similar in taste and texture. So those are 2 good options for that. You know, you could use any kind of rice, which would go good with this dish. You could also make a salad like this with, you know, some sort of wild rice or something like that. So plenty of options based on, you know, your flavor profile and your nutritional value.
And then lastly, we had for one of the base ingredients was fresh basil. So we're going to show a few chopping skills for that as well, because this can also be tricky to chop at home if you don't have, if you wanted to use fresh basil instead of dried basil, just for that added flavor boost too.
Yeah, so I'll show you guys a quick technique. This is called the chiffonade cut. So basically what I did is we had a full basil plant, and I just picked the basil leaves off and kind of got them into a large pile here. So I'm just gonna take the basil, I'm gonna roll it slightly so it's nice and tight like this. And then again, I'm gonna take my knife and just kind of chop it so you get those, you know, long kind of stringy basil leaves. It's good for, you know, garnishing, or it's good for just mixing inside the salad. And this technique could also be used for parsley, cilantro, any kind of green leaf herb. So you guys can kind of see what the finished result is here.
For any of our herbs that have like longer stems, do you usually take them off the stems? Do you kind of incorporate the stems in while you're chopping?
Yeah, if you're using it fresh, you don't really want to eat the stems. But if you're gonna put it inside of like a chimichurri or some sort of vinaigrette that has fresh herbs, you just definitely want to pull the leaves off and kind of chop them like I did here. If you're gonna blend it up and make some kind of vinaigrette or something like that, you know, the stems don't really have a different flavor profile to them. So if you're gonna put them in a Roboku or some sort of Vitamix to kind of blend them up and get some sort of dressing, then you can find and throw, you know, some of the stem in there. It's not gonna hurt. It's not gonna change the flavor profile. But if you're doing it fresh like this, I do recommend, you know, pulling it off of the plant or the stem and just kind of getting them in there and chopping them up like this.
All right, so now we're going to go to the dressing for the salad. So we're going to start with a half cup of olive oil, and this already has the lemon juice mixed into it too. So we're going to pour that in there. We're going to do the Dijon mustard. So again, if you're making the salmon with this salad, I'd recommend just using whatever mustard you picked for the salmon marinade too, so that they have similar flavor profiles. All right, so we have the Dijon, apple cider vinegar is next. And then a honey, that's a little sweetness to it too. This is our spice mix, so it's salt, pepper, and a little bit of red bell or crushed red pepper. If you don't like the heat for that, take out the crushed red pepper. And then 2 cloves of garlic. All right, and so we're gonna mix this up until it's a good dressing consistency.
Can you use lemon juice in place of apple cider vinegar?
So you could kind of use any sort of vinegar. You could use like a Chablis white vinegar, a sherry vinegar, red wine vinegar. The concept is basically you're making a vinaigrette. So you know, if you don't have apple cider, I would recommend red wine or the white vinegar, something like that, to kind of keep the flavor, and so you're not, you know, the apple cider gives you a little bit of sweetness. So on top of the honey, it's going to add a little bit more sweetness to it.
But lemon can't be a substitute if you don't have vinegar.
What's that?
Can the lemon be a substitute if you don't have the vinegar?
Not necessarily. You know, you want to use some sort of oil and some sort of vinegar. You can do it without it, and to, you know, fresh squeeze the lemon in there. It's not going to hurt anything. The flavors are still going to work, right? But that vinegar is just going to give you that extra kind of kick that you want to really, you know, get your whole palate going there.
All right, thank you.
You also could do this in like a mason jar too, and then you could just shake it up instead of doing all the whisking.
How long would a freshly made salad dressing last? Because I know we're thinking about like National Nutrition Month, be on the table saving things. Is it something that stays well in your fridge for a while?
Yeah, if we're talking about vinaigrettes, that's gonna last you for a little while because it's only olive oil and vinegar are the two base ingredients. So if you mix it up, you could put this in your fridge for at least 5 to 7 days. But if you're gonna do something that contains like egg yolk or something like a Caesar dressing, that's gonna have a little bit less shelf time because of the fresh egg yolks and stuff like that. But if we're doing something like this, you know, you get some good shelf life out of it.
So this is what the vinaigrette looks like once it's done. And then you're just going to pour it right on top. I'll move this over in just a second. Thanks. All right, so everything is together, and now we're just gonna toss it around.
I just want to make sure it's well mixed, make sure all those flavors are, getting incorporated very nicely so that every bite you're getting, you're getting the vinegar, you're getting the lemon, you're getting the crunch from the almonds. So just mixing it until it's well incorporated is key here for a cold salad.
And if somebody, let's say, had like a bag of frozen broccoli, I know you talked about pre-chopped broccoli, but I think a lot of times, like we might just have something left over in the freezer. Could somebody, I know it's a cold salad, but could you, do the steam and bag broccoli and then use that in this, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, frozen vegetables are great. I would recommend, not steaming them because you don't want to cook them. We don't want the temperature. It'll be hard to get the cooling process down. But if you just kind of leave them out in some cold running water for about 5 to 10 minutes, and that'll kind of get the chill off from the frozen vegetables, or even pull them out a day ahead of time. So yeah, definitely frozen vegetables work great for this recipe.
Great. And we had a question in the chat. Could we blanch the broccoli first if we don't want to eat it entirely raw? Like if we have any GI issues with maybe some raw and fibers?
Yeah, absolutely. I think blanching is a great technique for cooking broccoli. The one thing I would recommend just to stop that cooling process is to shock it, which is basically you boil the broccoli for about 1 minute or so, you'll pull it out, then you put it in the ice water, and that kind of preserves the brightness of the broccoli. And it also stops the cooking process so it doesn't carry over, cook, and get soggy or anything like that. But yeah, definitely blanch it and then shock it for sure.
All right, so I think we've got everything cooked and prepped and ready to go. So now we can go ahead and show you what it would look like plated.
Okay, just gonna grab my fish spatula here.
Did you leave the skin on the salmon? Someone had asked that earlier.
Ours is on the salmon, yes,
Okay.
but you could do it without skin too.
Yeah, it's really easy after you cook it to kind of slide your spatula or even a knife or something that you have to take off the skin. It's a little bit harder to do when it's raw because you would have to, really get in there with your knife. So if you let it cook with the skin on, and then after it's fully cooked, you kind of slide your spatula right under there and the skin will peel right off. Yep.
So this is some of the reserved marinade that we use. We saved about a third of it to just put on top just to add a little kick of the flavor on top of this as well. You don't have to do this. We tested it out before and it tastes great without the extra marinade on top too. So you accidentally forget and pop all the salmon into the marinade, that's not really gonna make a big difference.
And I know you guys air fried it, but if somebody didn't have an air fryer at home, what would be another prep method that they could use for the salmon?
Yeah, so there's definitely some different cooking techniques that you could do. You could do it right inside a pan. Like I talked about earlier, though, you want to keep that on a low kind of heat because it's a direct heat. You could also just pop it in the oven for 8 to 10 minutes, and you'll get the same results as the air fryer. So if you don't have one of those at home, saute pan, just in the oven. would be great techniques for that.
If you cook in the oven, would you recommend putting it in foil? I've seen it before where they wrap the salmon in foil and then put it in that way.
I don't think you need to. I kind of like to see that caramelization that comes if you wrap it in foil. It's going to be more of a poached, which you can poach salmon. You know, it's going to release a little bit more moisture, so you're not going to get that nice caramelization that you kind of see on top of the salmon, which is going to add you know, extra flavor to the salmon. So you can do that as well, but I do recommend just popping it in the oven. You know, maybe put a little pan spray or something down so it doesn't stick. And that way, you know, when you're done, you're ready to go.
Excuse me, is it on broil or bake when you put it in the oven?
You could do either or. So broil is going to be usually a higher temperature, closer to 400 degrees. So you just want to be cautious of that because, you know, you might have to adjust your cooking time a little bit.
Okay.
But if you use bake, that's going to be similar to just what we did in the air fryer. So either or would work for that. Just kind of keep an eye on the salmon. Maybe you don't need to go the full 8 minutes on broiler. You know, maybe you need to go 6 or 7 minutes, depending on how you like the salmon cooked as well, too.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. You want to go?
Sure. All right, so we're gonna put a little scoopful of the broccoli salad on here.
All right. We'll add our zucchini and corn. We're going to finish this. If you notice, the recipe calls for Parmesan. I didn't add the Parmesan in here because I don't necessarily want it to melt with this stuff. So we're just going to put it on top to give it that little bit of saltiness. Also finish it with a little bit of parsley over here.
Oh, sorry. And this is what your finished product will look like.
That looks beautiful. We had some people in the chat that are very hungry now that they have
Yes.
watched this.
We are as well.
Yes.
Hopefully you guys will get to enjoy this afterward.
We did a test run of it before, so we tried the salmon and it was pretty tasty. So we're
Good.
waiting to try the rest though.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. It's a beautiful, bright plate. And I don't know if Brianna, you can speak anything to, you know, I know the brightness of the plate and all the colors, you know, are we going to get a lot of different nutrition from having kind of like these greens and yellows and all the different colors on the plate?
Right, yeah, exactly. So one of the things that you'll hear a lot is you want to eat the rainbow, and that just kind of ensures that you'll get all the essential vitamins and minerals and micronutrients from those different varieties of vegetables too. So the reds have different, red vegetables and fruits will have different antioxidants than say greens versus yellows. They all have a slightly different micronutrient breakdown, but just having that added variety too will kind of ensure that you're getting all the important things that you need in the diet too.
It also looks wonderful on a plate with all those colors.
Yeah.
It does. It looks amazing. Well, I would love to hear from you guys. Oh, actually, we have one more question in the chat. Somebody asked, is farm raised salmon okay? I'm not necessarily sure which type of salmon you used, wild caught.
Yeah, so the difference between farm-raised salmon and wild-caught salmon is when you're talking about farm-raised salmon, you know, it's somebody who kind of cuts off a part of the water and, you know, kind of throws a lot of, so they don't have as much free range to swim around. So I definitely recommend if you can get wild salmon to do that. I think it's just a little bit healthier. It's a little bit more, you know, nutritionally sound to buy wild caught because the fish are living free and all over the ocean rather than kind of being in a small space and together. So.
What is the best way to thaw salmon quickly? Because now I'm starving. I want to get that freezer and I want to eat everything you just made in about 20 minutes because I'm so hungry. So
It only takes about 20 minutes to make. So
well, what's the
it's a quick
easiest
dinner.
way to unthaw the salmon without it getting mushy?
The best way to thaw any type of fish or meat is to, you know, take it out of the freezer and let cold water run on top of it. You don't
Raw?
want it, Cold.
like without being in a plastic? Like,
I'm sorry.
like taking it out and letting water run on it that's what I was wondering. Like, should you let the
Yeah,
water
you
run?
wanna you wanna keep it in some sort of plastic if it's not already in like a plastic bag would probably be the best, or like a
Like a freezer
vacuum
bag.
sealed. If you don't have that, you know, a little Ziploc would be great. If you use Saran wrap, it's just gonna kind of fall off of the fish. You don't want the water to directly hit the flesh of the salmon, because then it's gonna kind of break it apart and stuff like that. So in a plastic,
Yeah, I made that mistake. That makes it all mushy and
yeah,
completely.
we don't want mushy.
Okay, so how long do you think it would take? Like, should I put, if I want to make it quickly, should I put a pot of boiling water on and stick the baggie in there real quick or something? Like
No, because you want to use
that?
cold water, so it is a little bit longer of a process. You know, you don't want to start using hot boiling water because it's going to start to cook the fish, but it's not going to cook it to the full, you know, 150 degrees that you need it to cook to. It's going to start cooking it slowly, and then bacteria could start to grow and stuff like that.
So basically, it would probably take about at least 20 to 30 minutes
Or
for it to
just
thaw
put it in the
out.
refrigerator, yeah. You know, you can microwave if you have to, you know, take it out of the plastic or whatever. But the cooking process is going to change a little bit, you know, because it's already slightly cooked.
Well, thank you for answering my question.
Of course.
I feel like here at Unite for Her, I know myself and Erin tend to be huge sticklers on food safety. So
Exactly, yeah.
we want everybody to eat a safe, healthy piece of salmon, even if it takes a little bit longer.
Very important.
And
Yes.
salmon's not too thick either, so it usually doesn't, it's not going to take like as long as it would to defrost the chicken breast. So just being a little more patient and using that cold water too, just so you're ensuring that you're not growing any harmful bacteria on the salmon while it's sitting there in that warm water.
Someone also asked in the chat, circling back to the salmon skin, does it add any nutrition to eat the skin additionally? You know, is it highly nutritious? If you guys have anything to speak on about that.
Not
I don't have the facts on that, so but I've heard that skin is very nutritious for you. It tastes great to me. I love the texture of it. It's nice and crunchy. As far as nutrition, I've heard that it is nutritional for you, but I don't want to say 100% that it is. But I would imagine that, you know,
yeah,
it's got nutritional value.
and I mean, salmon itself is already so nutrient dense. I think you're getting plenty just from having the salmon itself, the salmon fillet. If you like the salmon skin though, go for it. I personally am opposite. I'm not a huge fan of the salmon skin. So I would be the one picking it off while Dustin would be eating the crunchy salmon skin.
Hey, to each his own, right?
Yes.
Right.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing those amazing recipes. I know that you mentioned that with the medically tailored meals, you oftentimes try to make it, you know, 50% carb, 30% protein, 20% fat. I know that you're serving a wide variety of different folks who have different, you know, illnesses and different
Yes.
needs. For example, like
Mhm.
renal disease, I know needs different nutrition. Are there
Yes.
special considerations you make for the cancer meals, or, you know, what does that look like?
So across the board, our meals are going to be heart healthy. So they're lower in sodium. They're around like 1900 milligrams of sodium per week. So that's baseline for that. And they're all diabetic friendly, meaning that you have portion controlled carbohydrates consistently throughout each meal. So that's kind of our baseline. With cancer patients, I know a lot of the times weight loss can be a concern. So we do have a modification where we send extra protein shakes. So instead of getting 7 protein shakes, 1 for each day, you'll get double that. They also send just some extra little snacks and things on top of that too, just to make sure that if you're having weight loss or you have an increased protein need, that we can accommodate that specifically. Same thing like with renal diet, we have a modification for that where we can limit the amount of potassium in your diet, so that we have a few different modifications in that sense.
Great. And if somebody was in our area, you know, and was eligible perhaps, or wanted to see if they were eligible for MANNA, how would they go about applying?
Yeah, absolutely. So on our website there, on our homepage, mannapa.org, if you scroll down just a little bit, there's a yellow box and it'll say apply for meals here. So basically what we would need is someone on your healthcare team. So from a doctor, a nurse, a dietitian, your social worker, case manager, anybody who is familiar with your health status, your care, they can fill out that paperwork for you. And then if they do it online, that'll automatically get sent through. And every morning, myself and the other 2 dietitians will go through each referral and decide if you're meeting the qualification for our meals. So what that looks like is we have to have a qualifying illness, which cancer would be a qualifying illness. So having a history or current cancer treatment. And then on top of that, an acute nutritional risk factor. So what we look for there is we look for unintended weight loss. We look for a recent hospitalization. If you were recently diagnosed with cancer, or you were recently put on a new treatment, if you started chemotherapy or radiation, or had a recent surgery, those will all qualify you for our meals.
Great, thank you for sharing. And for anybody who is in the chat, I did put that link in the chat as well, so that you can see that as well. And I know that everybody had so much fun with you guys today. So let me ask, I know you guys do a similar series with MANNA. I would love to hear a little bit more about your Get Fresh.
Yeah, so we do Get Fresh quarterly. We do 3 different classes each week. So each dietitian does a different class, a different topic. We have our new series coming up at the end of this month. So kind of finishing up, wrapping up National Nutrition Month. Our dietitian Rachel is going to lead that off the first week. So what we do there is we do about a 15-20 minute PowerPoint presentation. So for example, last quarter we did nutrition myths. So we each took a different nutrition myth that's really commonly found in social media, or if you're just Googling online about healthy diets or different lifestyle changes. I did mine on the benefits of supplements, if supplements are necessary or can be necessary or beneficial, or any risks that might go along with taking supplements. So we do a presentation on whatever topic, and then we do a similar food demo, not quite as extensive. So we typically do 1 meal for the food demo. If you come in person, you get to actually make it afterwards as well too. So you can make it, take it home. But yeah, we do presentation and then a cooking demo afterwards. So kind of similar to this, but just with a PowerPoint as well.
Fun. And how does somebody participate in a Get Fresh? I apologize if you said that already.
Emily, would you be able to speak on how they actually get?
All right, so I have not sent out the flyers yet for Get Fresh or the registration link, but ultimately there's a couple of different ways to get signed up. The classes are going to occur through Zoom the same way that you logged on today. So easy registration from that front. If you wanted to get connected with us, you could always give us a call at our Nutrition and Client Services department. And I can put that phone number and extension in the chat. And you can ask to get put on the registration link. You'll just need your email address. You can also feel free to email me. I can put my email in the chat and we can go through the same process of getting you set up. When you register for the Zoom classes, you're going to be registering for all 3 at the same time. You do not have to attend all 3. It's not mandatory. You can kind of come and go as you please. If you were to come in person, we would also just set that up as well and have an RSVP for you to come in person.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for shedding some information on that.
That's great. I'm so excited.
Yay.
Yay.
Yeah, they're fun
Yay,
classes for sure.
Yay, Manna. Love you.
We've got lots of excitement here today. Thank you,
Good.
Carol. Always bringing the fun. Well, we do still have a little bit of time left. However, I wanted to ask, is there anything else you guys would like to share, Brianna or Dustin, or anybody, here on today, any questions you have for the 2 of them, definitely pop them in the chat. I can bring them up or unmute. But anything you guys wanted to share about MANNA's services, any of your work, or just anything on the recipes or cooking?
I would just say, if you're working with a new recipe or something, don't be scared to try something new, and just go for it. Don't overthink it. You know, you could do it. Definitely could do it. So don't be scared to do it, and go and try some things that are good for you and also flavorful as well.
Yeah, and if you enjoy cooking too, we also love having volunteers coming into our office as well. We have our whole kitchen right behind us. It's really fun to come here and volunteer. You get to make some of the meals that we send out to all of our clients too. You can learn a little bit about what we're making, how we cook things. It's a really fun, just kind of like interactive shifts that we get to do. So you can kind of get your hands on and see what a day looks like here too, which has been a pretty fun volunteer hour.
Awesome. It would be so fun, I'm sure, to be a volunteer at MANNA. And
Yeah,
I know, so today, oh, sorry, go ahead, Dustin.
I was just saying, we have a blast in the kitchen. So,
Yeah, for sure.
if you got some free time, definitely come and see us.
Yeah, thank you. And I know today was, at least here at Unite for Her, this was kind of our start into National Nutrition Month. Are you guys doing anything special for National Nutrition Month? Anything you want to highlight?
Yeah, so I know we're doing several different variations of presentations around Philadelphia. We're doing each of us have a few different presentations that we're giving, just kind of highlighting different themes each week. So this week was cooking on a budget. We do a lot with our social media too, so you can learn a lot on our Instagram page. I know we posted a reel about reading a nutrition facts label and how that can help when you're at the grocery store, comparing similar items and then comparing them to your budget, seeing if one makes more sense for your individual needs, or one just seems completely out of your budget and you want to know what's the difference between one versus the other. So just quick tips on reading those facts labels, what to look for, what to watch out for. So our Instagram page is always posting new educational information too. Also just fun things that we're doing in the office as well, so you can kind of see like what goes on here. So we'll have a lot of that coming up this month.
Great, thank you. Wonderful. Well, I don't see any other questions in the chat. Anything else from either of you, or does anybody need to unmute and have any questions?
I do.
Yes.
So I got a question because I was just talking to my primary doctor, and I was also talking to Joanne yesterday, over at the doctor's office, and I am confused because I found out that I have chronic kidney disease stage 3, and I have stage 4 metastatic breast cancer, which the diets contradict each other. So I was talking to a primary doctor today because I really need to lose like 50 more pounds, and I keep going back and forth. And then I tried to fast, and I really threw everything off. I ended up in the hospital. So you can't fast when you have chronic kidney disease. I didn't know that. So I am trying to figure out, if I was to contact you guys, would you be able to help design a diet for those different conditions, since they both contradict each other?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, sure, fine, but you need answer diet.
Yeah, so absolutely. So we, with our, in addition to our meal plans, we also, all three of the dietitians, we provide nutrition counseling. So even if you weren't interested in receiving the meals, but you just wanted nutrition counseling, you could have your doctor fill out that same form, and there's an option for nutrition counseling for meals and for both. So we provide nutrition counseling for anybody who would be interested. So we can definitely work one-on-one with you and learn more about your health needs and kind of make a plan that would work better for your specific needs.
Do I get a prescription? Do I have to have her write a prescription for MANNA?
No.
Or somebody in particular?
No. So you would just need to fill out the referral form, but it's not an actual prescription that you'd be getting.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So just, you could contact your primary care doctor or your oncologist or whoever you spoke with recently, and they could fill out that referral form for nutrition counseling.
Great. That's exactly what she said to me today, an hour ago. She said, I think you need to talk to nutritional counseling. And I'm trying to figure out who I want to send you to, she said. I said, well, I got this meeting coming up.
Yeah.
So thanks, guys. You really helped me today.
Of course, yeah.
Perfect. And I think that's also too a great point is for anybody who is part of our program here at Unite for Her or has been part of our program, we also have our nutrition counseling as well. So Carol and anybody else, you're always welcome to reach out to us. I can pop the link in the chat as well for our nutrition consultations, but we're always happy to connect. You know, I'm sure Brianna and the whole MANNA team also always happy to connect just to help answer any questions and clear anything up for you guys. And hopefully today was helpful to answer some questions, clear some things up for everybody. It was a fantastic start to National Nutrition Month. We really appreciate you guys hopping on. As a reminder to everybody as well, I will add myself here back in the spotlight as well. All right, perfect. So as a reminder to everyone, we still have a couple events coming up for National Nutrition Month and otherwise this month. So we have our second virtual hangout coming up next Wednesday, March 13th at 5 p.m. Eastern. You'll be joined by myself. The 3 other dietitians on the team will be cooking some different dark leafy greens, talking about kale and chard specifically, 4 different recipes on how to cook those. We have our Her Speaker Series on March 21st at 5 p.m. Eastern, where we'll be joined by the president of the Society for Integrative Oncology. And then we have our Nutrition Rapid Fire Ask the Experts on Thursday, March 28th at 1 p.m. Eastern. So you'll join our team again to talk about all things nutrition. So once again, thank you to our digital education events sponsors. We have West, Merck, and Daiichi Sankyo with additional support from GSK and Lilly. And we also, of course, want to thank our friends at MANNA. So thank you, everybody, for hopping on tonight to learn a little bit more about cooking, a little bit more about MANNA, and we so appreciated having you here. And everybody have a fantastic evening.
Thank you so much for having us.
Bye, guys. We've got a lot of love in the chat, a lot of thank yous. People learned a lot. So thank you, everybody. As a reminder to everyone, the blog will have all these recipes if you didn't pull it from the chat either. So feel free to look there.